I'm Madison, 29, a senior cybersecurity specialist at Quantum Shield Technologies. My clearance level grants me access to systems most people will never know exist. The encrypted protocols I develop protect lives, literally. Thanksgiving at my parents' house seemed innocent enough until they decided my glitchy work laptop was just another broken device cluttering their guest room. What they didn't know, that laptop contained $42 million worth of classified military communication systems. What happened next nearly destroyed everything. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from, hit that subscribe button, and stick around because this security nightmare could happen to anyone with a family who doesn't understand technology. I've always been the outlier in my family. While they focused on building the Taylor Family Insurance Agency in our small Midwestern town of Mapleton, I was the kid taking apart computers in the basement. By 14, I'd taught myself 3 programming languages. My guidance counselor called me a prodigy, but my parents called it that computer phase. They assumed I'd grow out of it and join the family business, like my sister Allison. When MIT offered me a full scholarship to study computer science, my parents actually seemed disappointed. Such a waste of your people skills. My mother Barbara sighed, as if I'd chosen to become a hermit rather than enter one of the most dynamic fields in the world. My father Richard was more direct. Technology is a bubble that's going to burst. Insurance is forever. I graduated with honors and immediately landed a position at Quantum Shield Technologies, a government contractor specializing in cybersecurity for military applications. Within 5 years, I'd climbed to senior specialist, managing a team developing next-generation encryption protocols for battlefield communications. My work directly impacted national security, something I couldn't fully explain to my family due to clearance restrictions. So you just type things all day? My sister Allison asked during our rare phone calls, her voice dripping with the same dismissal I'd heard my entire life. Meanwhile, she'd followed the expected path. Business degree, immediate position at the family agency, engaged to her college sweetheart Bradley, and recently promoted to COO, a title my father created specifically for her. I avoided going home whenever possible. Each visit was a minefield of subtle jabs about my personal life, questions about when I'd get a real job with advancement potential, and endless praise for Allison's conventional achievements. I'd mastered the art of deflection, keeping conversations superficial and visits brief. This Thanksgiving was different. My team was finalizing a critical encryption protocol worth approximately $42 million in development costs, with incalculable strategic value to military communications. The project deadline loomed just after the holiday weekend, and despite company policy strictly prohibiting removing sensitive material from our secure facility, I made a calculated compromise. I installed additional security protocols of my own design on my specialized work laptop and brought it with me. The hardware itself was custom-built with proprietary components, multiple authentication systems, and specialized firmware that would make it virtually impenetrable to anyone without extensive knowledge of our systems. The laptop looked ordinary enough, a sleek black device indistinguishable from commercial models to the untrained eye. But inside, it contained multiple security layers, biometric verification, and remote monitoring capabilities. I'd added my own custom security measures, including a cascading encryption protocol that would make the data progressively more secure if unauthorized access was attempted. My plan was simple: stay for the mandatory family dinner Thursday, work in the guest room through the weekend, then leave Sunday morning. I'd arranged for minimal interaction with my family, planning to blame my workload for my limited social availability. It wasn't entirely untrue. The encryption protocol required my complete attention, and the quiet isolation of my hometown seemed preferable to the distractions of my apartment in the city. As I packed my bags Wednesday night, I hesitated briefly. Taking the laptop violated at least 3 company security policies, but the alternative, falling behind on the project timeline, seemed worse. I justified it by reminding myself of the additional security measures I'd implemented. The laptop would be in my possession at all times, in a house with people who barely understood how to use their smartphones. What could possibly go wrong? I arrived at my parents' modest 2-story colonial Thursday morning after a 3-hour drive. The neighborhood hadn't changed. Same manicured lawns, same holiday decorations, same sense that time moved more slowly here. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Allison's new BMW already parked in my usual spot. Of course, she'd arrived earlier, probably helping Mom prepare breakfast while discussing the latest family business triumph. My mother opened the door before I could knock, her practiced smile firmly in place. "Madison, you made it." The enthusiasm seemed genuine for approximately 3 seconds before she added, "We were just saying how you're always the last to arrive. Come in, come in. Allison and Bradley are already here." I forced a smile and stepped into the house that never quite felt like home anymore. The next few days would be a careful balancing act between familial obligations and professional responsibilities. I had no idea I was walking into a security catastrophe that would test both to their breaking point. Dinner that first night went exactly as expected. We sat around the same oak dining table that had been the centerpiece of family meals for decades, eating my mother's traditional turkey with all the fixings. The conversation followed its predictable pattern, my father dominating with stories about the insurance agency, my mother interjecting with neighborhood gossip, and Allison showcasing her picture-perfect life. "So, Madison, still at that same tech job?" my father asked, cutting into his turkey with surgical precision. "Yes, Dad. Still at Quantum Shield." I kept my tone neutral, despite the implication that I was somehow stagnating. 5 years at the same company. He shook his head. "In this economy, loyalty doesn't pay. At your age, I'd already opened our second office location." Before I could respond, Allison stretched her left hand across the table, the overhead light catching her diamond engagement ring. "Bradley and I set a date. June 12th at the Mapleton Country Club. We just finalized everything yesterday." My mother clasped her hands together. "Oh, that's wonderful. The country club is perfect. Remember how beautiful Cousin Jennifer's wedding was there?" And, Allison continued, glancing at me with barely concealed triumph, "Dad's making me full partner in January. We're expanding to the Riverdale area, and I'll be heading the new branch." "That's our girl," my father beamed, raising his glass. "To Allison, the future of Taylor Family Insurance." Everyone clinked glasses while I forced a smile. No one asked about my recent promotion or the national security project I was leading. Not that I could share many details, but the complete lack of interest stung nonetheless. "Madison's job is important too," my mother said suddenly, as if reading my thoughts. Before I could feel appreciative, she added, "All that computer security must be very technical. Though I do worry about you staring at screens all day. My friend Janice's daughter got terrible migraines from that." "It's cybersecurity, Mom. And yes, it is important." I took a long sip of wine, wondering how quickly I could excuse myself. "Speaking of technical," Allison jumped in. "Bradley's company just upgraded everyone to those new Apple laptops. Isn't yours getting a bit outdated? It looked ancient when you were working earlier." My work laptop is specialized equipment. It's not about having the newest commercial model. Bradley, who had been quietly eating until now, perked up. "I've always wanted to ask, what exactly do you do all day? Like, are you just looking for hackers or something?" I gave my standard civilian-friendly explanation. "We develop security systems for government communications infrastructure. My current project involves encryption protocols that protect sensitive information during transmission." Blank stares greeted me around the table. "She makes sure bad guys can't read government emails," Allison translated condescendingly. "Something like that," I muttered, though it was drastically oversimplified. After dinner, I retreated to the guest room, my old bedroom, stripped of personality and converted to a generic space with floral wallpaper and a queen bed that took up most of the room. I set up my laptop on the small desk in the corner and got to work. The encryption protocol I was developing used quantum-resistant algorithms to protect military communications even against future quantum computing attacks. The value of the project, conservatively estimated at $42 million, reflected both its development costs and strategic importance. If compromised, it could set military communication security back years and potentially endanger field operations. Around midnight, I noticed the first anomaly. The screen flickered briefly while I was testing a subroutine. I ran a diagnostic but found nothing concrete, just some unusual latency in the system response. After a few more tests with similar results, I attributed it to the secure VPN connection running through my parents' mediocre home internet. I continued working until my eyes burned from fatigue. The Thanksgiving meal and family tension had drained me more than I realized. I decided to rest for a few hours, carefully activating the laptop's security protocols before crawling into bed. The last thing I remembered was setting an alarm for 5 a.m. to continue working before my family woke up. When I opened my eyes, sunlight was streaming through the curtains. I squinted at my phone, 8:37 a.m. Somehow, I'd slept through my alarm. I sat up quickly, looking toward the desk where I'd left my laptop. It was gone. At first, I thought I was disoriented from oversleeping. I checked the floor, the bed, even under the pillows. The laptop had vanished. A wave of panic hit me as I threw on clothes and rushed downstairs. My family was gathered in the kitchen, casually eating breakfast as if nothing was wrong. The normality of the scene made my anxiety spike higher. "Has anyone seen my laptop?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "Oh, good morning to you too," my mother said, buttering a piece of toast. "There's coffee in the pot." "My laptop," I repeated. "It's not in my room." My father looked up from his newspaper. "That old thing? Don't worry, we took care of it." "What do you mean, took care of it?" The edge in my voice finally caught their attention. "Well, my father set down his paper. I came to ask if you wanted breakfast around 7. And I noticed your computer screen was doing that flickering thing." Richard Jr. had the same problem with his laptop before it died completely. "So we figured we'd help you out." My blood ran cold. "Help me out how?" "Derek came by earlier to pick it up," my mother said cheerfully, referencing my cousin who ran a small electronics repair shop. "He said he could probably fix it, or at least salvage the important parts for you." Wasn't that thoughtful? The room seemed to tilt sideways. "You gave my work laptop to Derek?" "We didn't give it to him," my father corrected. "He paid us $500 for it. That way, you can put it toward a new one. Those government jobs must pay well enough for decent equipment." "You sold my work laptop." I couldn't contain my horror. "Madison, don't overreact." Allison rolled her eyes. It was obviously on its last legs. The screen was glitching. "That wasn't a glitch. That was a security feature." I grabbed my phone, hands shaking. "Do you have any idea what you've done? That laptop contains classified government information." My mother frowned. "Don't be dramatic, dear. We're just trying to help. You're always so attached to your gadgets." "This isn't about attachment. That laptop has military-grade encryption protocols on it. I could go to prison if that information is compromised." My family exchanged skeptical looks, clearly not believing the severity of the situation. "Government paranoia," my father scoffed. "Everything's classified these days." I was already dialing Derek's number, praying he hadn't started taking the laptop apart yet. Each ring felt like an eternity until he finally answered. "Hey, Madison. I was just, Derek, that laptop you bought from my parents, have you done anything with it yet?" "Oh yeah, already got it apart. Nice machine, actually. Custom components. I've got the hard drive connected to my diagnostic system right now. Weird though, it's giving me all these encryption errors." My heart stopped. "Derek, disconnect it now. Right now. Don't touch anything else. I'm coming over." I ended the call and grabbed my car keys, ignoring my family's confused questions. As I rushed to the door, I heard my sister's dismissive voice. "Always has to be the center of attention." I had no time to argue. I was already dialing my supervisor's number as I ran to my car. This was no longer just a family misunderstanding. It was potentially a national security incident. "Garrett, we have a situation." I gripped the steering wheel with one hand while holding my phone with the other, driving perhaps faster than I should have toward Derek's workshop on the other side of town. "Madison, it's 9 a.m. on Black Friday. This better be important." My supervisor's voice had that edge it always got when his family time was interrupted. "My work laptop has been compromised." I took a deep breath. My family sold it to my cousin without my knowledge while I was asleep. He's already opened it and connected the hard drive to his network. The silence that followed was deafening. "Please tell me this is some kind of sick joke." Garrett's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I wish it was." I'm on my way to recover all components now. I've instructed him not to touch anything else. Do you understand the severity of what you're telling me? His voice rose sharply. Forget the security breach. You removed a classified system from our facility. That's grounds for immediate termination, not to mention potential criminal charges. I know, Garrett. I made a critical error in judgment. An error in judgment is wearing mismatched socks. Madison, this is a national security incident. I heard him take several deep breaths. I'm activating the security response team. They'll track any potential data exfiltration. Get to that hard drive and implement remote lockdown protocol immediately. Already preparing to execute it from my phone. And Madison, if any of that data has been compromised, there's nothing I can do to protect you. You understand that, right? I understand. I ended the call as I screeched into the gravel driveway outside Derek's workshop, a converted garage behind his small ranch house. Through the large bay windows, I could see him hunched over a workbench, my disassembled laptop spread out in pieces. I burst through the door, startling him so badly he knocked a screwdriver onto the floor. Whoa! Madison, what's the emergency? Step away from the computer, Derek. I moved to the workbench, assessing the damage. The laptop was in pieces, case removed, components exposed. The hard drive sat connected to his desktop computer, a progress bar showing some kind of file system scan in process. What's going on? I'm just trying to recover your data This is government property containing classified information. I cut him off, disconnecting the hard drive. You need to give me every component right now. Derek's confused expression hardened. Hey, I paid good money for this. Your dad said it was broken and you needed a new one. It wasn't theirs to sell. I was already gathering the components, checking for any signs of data transfer completion. How long has this been connected to your system? I don't know, maybe 20 minutes? But something's weird with it, all encrypted or something. I was about to try a different approach when you called. I spotted an external drive connected to his computer. Is this yours? Was it connected during the process? Yeah, that's my backup drive. Always keep it plugged in. My stomach dropped. If the scanning program had triggered automatic backups, did you attempt to copy any files? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I ran my standard recovery software, but it kept hitting security blocks. He frowned. What kind of laptop has military-grade encryption anyway? The program couldn't get past the first authentication layer. I pulled out my phone and initiated the emergency remote security protocol, a fail-safe I'd designed that would trigger a complete shutdown and digital lockdown of all system components, even if partially disassembled. Hey, Derek protested as his screen suddenly went dark. What did you do? Emergency security measures. I continued gathering components. Derek, I need your external drive too. No way. That's got all my business files on it. It may have been contaminated with classified security protocols. I'll have it scanned and returned if it's clean. His face reddened. This is ridiculous. It's just a laptop. It's specialized hardware with proprietary encryption systems worth millions of dollars. I held out my hand. The drive, Derek. This isn't a request. Reluctantly, he disconnected the external drive and handed it over. Your family said you were always obsessed with your computers, but this is next-level paranoia. I ignored the comment, focusing instead on securing every last component. I need any other devices that were connected to your network while this was active. Just my desktop. I'll need to run a security sweep on that too. Are you serious? I've got client data on there. Should have thought of that before connecting unknown hardware to your system. I was already running a preliminary scan of his desktop. You're lucky I'm not confiscating it completely. As I worked, my phone buzzed with a message from Garrett. Security tracking activated. Any signs of data exfiltration? I typed back. Preliminary assessment shows encryption held. Running full diagnostics now. By the time I finished securing everything, Derek was seething. You know what? Keep the damn thing. But I want my $500 back. Take it up with my parents, I replied coldly, packing everything into my car. And Derek, sign this. I pulled up a digital non-disclosure agreement on my phone. Unless you want a visit from actual federal agents. His eyes widened as he scanned the document. This is insane. Welcome to my world. I watched him reluctantly sign. If anyone asks about this, your answer is no comment. Understood? He nodded sullenly. As I drove back to my parents' house, another message from Garrett appeared. Team en route to your location. ETA 45 minutes. Contain the situation until they arrive. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The worst might have been avoided, but this was far from over. And I still had to face my family. I pulled into my parents' driveway with a screech of tires, grabbing the box of laptop components before rushing inside. The security team would be here soon, and I needed a secure workspace to begin damage assessment immediately. My family was gathered in the living room, their expressions ranging from annoyed to concerned as I burst through the door. Madison. What on earth? My mother began. Not now. I cut her off, heading straight for the guest room. I need the room clear. No interruptions. My father followed me up the stairs. Now wait, just a minute, young lady. You don't get to barge in here giving orders after that scene you caused. Derek called us, very upset. Dad, I turned to face him. Government security officials will be arriving in approximately 40 minutes. When they get here, you're going to want to be able to truthfully say you gave me space to secure the compromised system. Trust me on this. Something in my expression must have finally conveyed the severity of the situation, because he stopped arguing. Is this really that serious? Yes, it really is. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right, do what you need to do. Once alone, I transformed the guest room into an impromptu security station. I arranged the laptop components on the desk, connecting to my secure phone to run advanced diagnostics. The company's security systems had already begun tracking the potential breach, sending me regular updates as they monitored for any signs of data movement across networks. My phone rang Garrett again. Update, he demanded without preamble. Components recovered. Preliminary scans show the primary encryption remained intact, but there was an attempted unauthorized access. My cousin ran a recovery program that triggered security countermeasures. Was any data extracted? Unknown at this point. His system made automatic backups to an external drive, which I've also secured, running full diagnostics now. I heard Garrett relaying this information to someone else in the background before he returned to our call. The security team is bringing a containment unit. They'll take over the full assessment when they arrive. Madison. He paused. The director has been informed. My stomach dropped. The director of operations only got involved in the most serious security incidents. Understood. Containment and assessment are your priorities until the team arrives. After that, you'll need to provide a full statement. After ending the call, I focused entirely on the diagnostics. The cascading encryption protocol I'd designed had functioned exactly as intended when the unauthorized access attempt was detected. The system had automatically encrypted itself further, essentially building additional security layers in real time. But I couldn't be certain nothing had leaked during the initial connection to Derek's network. I was deep in the analysis when a knock at the door interrupted me. Madison? It was my mother, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. There are people here to see you, men in suits. I checked the time they'd arrived earlier than expected. Send them up. Moments later, 3 serious-looking individuals entered the room. The leader, a stern-faced woman in her 50s with short gray hair, introduced herself simply as Agent Hayes. Her colleagues immediately began setting up additional equipment around the room. Miss Taylor, Hayes addressed me formally. I understand you've initiated preliminary containment procedures. We'll take over from here. I need you to walk me through exactly what happened from the beginning. For the next 20 minutes, I provided a detailed account of everything from my decision to bring the laptop home, which earned me a disapproving look, to the recovery of the components from Derek's workshop. We'll need to interview your cousin as well, Hayes said when I finished. I had him sign an NDA, but yes, that makes sense. And your family? I hesitated. They don't understand the significance. They thought they were just selling a broken laptop. Hayes' expression remained impassive. Regardless, they'll need to be interviewed. Ignorance of the situation doesn't change the potential security implications. While the technical team worked on the components, I went downstairs to prepare my family. They were gathered in the living room, expressions ranging from confused to indignant. What is going on? My father demanded. There are government agents setting up equipment in our guest room. I told you this was serious, I said, keeping my voice low. The laptop contained classified security protocols. The agents need to determine if any information was compromised when Derek connected it to his network. This is ridiculous, Allison scoffed. It's just a computer. No, it's not just a computer, I finally snapped. It's a specialized device containing military communication encryption, worth millions of dollars that could potentially impact national security if compromised. And you all treated it like an old iPhone with a cracked screen. The room fell silent. They'll need to interview each of you, I continued more calmly. Just tell them exactly what happened. Don't embellish or downplay anything. My mother looked genuinely worried now. Are we in trouble? I don't know, I admitted. That depends on what the security assessment shows. Before anyone could respond, Agent Hayes appeared at the doorway. Miss Taylor, we need you upstairs. We've completed the preliminary assessment. I followed her back to the guest room, where the other agents had created an impressive command center out of portable equipment. One of them, a younger man with thick glasses, looked up from a monitor. The good news is the primary encryption protocols appear to have held, he reported. Your cousin's recovery software wasn't sophisticated enough to bypass even the first authentication layer. Relief washed over me, but Hayes quickly tempered it. However, she said gravely, we've detected evidence that the secondary systems were briefly accessed before the security protocols locked everything down. We need to determine exactly what was exposed during that window. My momentary relief vanished. Even secondary systems contained sensitive information, not the full encryption protocols, but enough technical details to potentially compromise security if they fell into the wrong hands. I need to know if your cousin has connections to any foreign entities or hacking organizations, Hayes continued. What? No. Derek repairs local business computers and sells refurbished laptops. He's not some international spy. We'll need to verify that. Hayes's expression remained severe. Miss Taylor, I should inform you that, pending the final assessment, you're facing potential suspension or termination from your position, along with possible security clearance revocation. The words hit like a physical blow. Everything I'd worked for, my entire career, could be over because of one bad decision compounded by my family's ignorance. As if summoned by my thoughts, I heard raised voices from downstairs. Stepping into the hallway, I could make out my parents arguing with one of the agents. This is completely unnecessary, my father was saying. We had no idea the laptop was anything special. Madison never explained its importance. That's right, my mother chimed in. If she had told us it was so valuable, we certainly wouldn't have touched it. Frankly, my sister's voice joined in. If Madison can't properly secure sensitive equipment, maybe she shouldn't be trusted with it in the first place. I stood frozen in the hallway, unable to believe what I was hearing. Even now, faced with federal agents and obvious evidence of the situation's severity, they were still deflecting responsibility and undermining me. I returned to the guest room, forcing myself to focus on the security assessment rather than my family's betrayal. The technical team was making progress, but we still didn't have definitive answers about what information might have been exposed. We need to check your cousin's external drive and network for any cached data, the technical specialist said. I'm also concerned about potential malware that could have been introduced during the connection. I nodded, my mind racing through possibilities. I implemented additional security measures beyond standard company protocols, I told them. There's a backup authentication system that would have activated during the unauthorized access attempt. Hayes looked at me sharply. Additional measures not documented in company security protocols? Yes. It's a cascading encryption system I developed that creates additional security layers when tampering is detected. It's more effective than the standard lockdown procedure, but I hadn't yet proposed it for company-wide implementation. Show me, the technical specialist said. His interest piqued. I moved to the terminal they'd set up and began accessing the hidden security architecture I'd built into the system. As I worked, I could hear my family being interviewed individually in separate rooms downstairs. Their voices drifted up, occasionally defensive, confused, and increasingly hostile as they realized the seriousness of the situation. For now, I pushed them from my mind. The security of the encryption protocols took priority over family drama. But I couldn't help wondering if our relationship could survive this crisis or if I even wanted it to. The security team worked methodically for hours, analyzing every component and data path. I assisted where I could, providing information about my custom security measures and answering technical questions. By mid-afternoon, they had established a secure perimeter around the recovered hardware and were conducting deep forensic analysis. I stepped out of the room to get some water, only to find my entire family gathered in the kitchen, looking shell-shocked after their individual interviews. "Is this almost over?" my mother asked wearily. "Agent Thompson said they might be here until tomorrow." "That depends on what they find," I replied, filling a glass from the tap. "This is completely excessive," my father declared. "We've been treated like criminals in our own home." I set down my glass harder than necessary. "Dad, this is a legitimate security incident. They're doing their jobs." "Well, if you had done your job properly, we wouldn't be in this situation," Allison interjected. "The agent asked me if you often bring classified materials home. Is that even allowed?" "No, it's not," I admitted. "I made a serious error in judgment." "See?" Allison looked triumphant. "This whole disaster is your fault, not ours." "My fault?" I stared at her incredulously. "I made a mistake bringing the laptop home." "Yes. But you all sold my property without my knowledge or consent while I was asleep. We thought we were helping," my mother insisted. "How were we supposed to know it contained government secrets?" "You weren't supposed to know, that's the whole point of classified information. But you also weren't supposed to take my personal property and sell it without asking me." "It's our house," my father countered. "And that laptop was clearly malfunctioning. That doesn't give you the right to sell my things." I was struggling to keep my voice down. "Would you sell Allison's engagement ring if you thought it looked scratched?" "That's completely different," my mother huffed. "Why? Because it's Allison's? Because you respect her possessions, but not mine?" "Don't start with the victim complex, Madison." Allison rolled her eyes. "This is just like you turning a simple misunderstanding into a federal case. Literally, in this situation." Before I could respond, my phone rang Garrett again. I stepped away to answer it. "The security team has submitted their initial report," he said without preamble. "The primary encryption protocols were not compromised." Relief flooded through me. "That's good news. Don't celebrate yet. There was a brief exposure of secondary architectural data before your security measures locked everything down. We're still assessing the implications. But this is far from resolved. The director wants to speak with you." My stomach dropped. "When?" "Now. Conference call in 5 minutes. Get somewhere private." I ended the call and turned to find my family watching me intently. "I need to take an important call," I said. "I'll be in the guest room." "More government drama?" Allison asked sarcastically. "Maybe you should focus on fixing this situation instead of making more phone calls." I was about to respond when the doorbell rang. My father went to answer it, returning moments later with Derek in tow. "The agents are done with me," Derek announced. "They're keeping my external drive for further analysis, but they said I'm free to go." He glared at me. "Thanks for ruining my Thanksgiving weekend, Madison. You ruined it yourself when you connected unknown hardware to your network," I replied tersely. "How was I supposed to know? Your parents said you needed help." "Yeah," my father jumped in. "We were trying to help you, and this is how you repay us? Bringing federal agents into our home? Embarrassing us in front of the entire neighborhood?" "Embarrassing? You?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm facing potential termination and security clearance revocation because of this. My entire career could be over." "Maybe that's for the best," my mother said quietly. "This job has always been too stressful for you, Madison. Perhaps this is a sign you should come home, join the family business like we always wanted." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? You think the solution to this disaster is for me to give up my career and come sell insurance with you? It would certainly be more stable than whatever this is." She gestured vaguely around at the security equipment visible through the doorway. My phone buzzed. The conference call was starting. "I have to take this call," I said, turning away. "Of course you do," Allison muttered. "Run away from the conversation like always." I whirled back around. "I'm not running away. I'm trying to save what's left of my career after you all decided to sell government property for pocket change." "We didn't know," my father shouted. "You didn't ask," I shouted back. "You never ask. You never listen. You've never once in my entire life actually tried to understand what I do or why it matters." The kitchen fell silent, my words hanging in the air between us. My phone continued to buzz insistently. "I have to take this," I said quietly, turning away from their stunned faces. I hurried to the guest room, closing the door firmly behind me. Agent Hayes raised an eyebrow at my flushed face but said nothing as I joined the conference call. The director's stern voice filled the room immediately. "Miss Taylor, I've reviewed the preliminary report. While the primary protocols appear intact, this represents a serious breach of security procedures. You removed classified materials from a secure facility, resulting in potential exposure of sensitive architectural data. Do you understand the gravity of this situation?" "Yes, Director. I made a serious error in judgment that I deeply regret." "Regret doesn't secure compromised protocols, Miss Taylor. Pending full assessment, you're suspended from active projects effective immediately. Your security clearance is temporarily restricted to Level 2 access only. Agent Hayes will escort you to headquarters for formal debriefing once the on-site assessment is complete." I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Understood, Director." As the call ended, I felt numb. Everything I'd worked for was crumbling around me, and my family, the people who were supposed to support me, were more concerned with deflecting blame than understanding the impact of their actions. Agent Hayes studied me for a moment. "The director is following protocol, but this isn't over yet. The final assessment could improve your situation." Before I could respond, the door burst open. My family had apparently been listening outside and decided to intervene. "Excuse me." My father addressed Hayes directly. "I'd like to speak on my daughter's behalf." Hayes looked surprised but nodded for him to continue. "Madison is being unfairly blamed for the situation," he began, and for a brief moment, I thought he was actually going to defend me. That illusion shattered with his next words. "While she shouldn't have brought this laptop home in the first place, we had no way of knowing its importance. She's always been secretive about her work, and frankly, I'm concerned that she's not suited for this level of responsibility." I stared at him in shock as he continued. "If she can't properly secure sensitive information or clearly communicate its importance to others, perhaps she shouldn't be trusted with it," he concluded, echoing Allison's earlier sentiment. Hayes glanced between us, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding in the middle of a security operation. "Mr. Taylor," she said carefully, "while I understand your concern, this is ultimately a matter between Miss Taylor and her employer. Our focus right now is assessing and containing any potential security breach." "But surely her judgment is relevant," my mother chimed in. "Madison has always been impulsive." Something inside me snapped. Years of dismissal, undermining, and condescension converged into a moment of perfect clarity. I stepped forward, interrupting whatever character assassination my mother was about to deliver. "Stop," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You don't get to do this. Not now, not anymore." My family looked startled by my tone. "For years, I've listened to you diminish my work, dismiss my accomplishments, and treat my career like some frivolous hobby. You've never once asked meaningful questions about what I do or why it matters. Instead, you've compared me to Allison at every turn, made me feel like a disappointment for not joining the family business, and treated my choices as somehow lesser." I turned to Agent Hayes. "My family is right about one thing. I made a serious error bringing this laptop home. I violated protocol because I was trying to meet an important deadline. That's on me entirely, and I accept full responsibility." Then I faced my family again. "But selling someone else's property without their knowledge or consent is wrong, regardless of what that property contains. The fact that you still don't understand that fundamental breach of trust is exactly why our relationship has deteriorated to this point." My father's face reddened. "Now, wait just a minute." "No," I cut him off. "I'm done waiting for you to respect me or my choices. I'm done trying to earn approval that's never coming. And I'm especially done apologizing for pursuing a career that doesn't fit your narrow definition of success." The technical specialist clearing his throat interrupted the tense silence that followed. "Agent Hayes, I've found something you should see." Hayes nodded to him, then turned to my family. "I need to ask you all to step outside while we continue our assessment." They hesitated, then filed out without another word, their expressions a mix of shock and indignation. As the door closed behind them, I took a deep breath, trying to regain my professional composure despite the emotional tempest inside me. "Show me what you found," Hayes said to the specialist, and we both moved to look at his monitor. On the screen was evidence of something I'd hoped would never be discovered: my personal security protocols, far more sophisticated than anything my company had implemented. In trying to protect the data, I had inadvertently revealed just how far beyond official protocols my skills had developed. "Miss Taylor," Hayes said carefully, "I think you'd better explain exactly what we're looking at here." The technical specialist pointed to lines of code on the screen. "These security protocols aren't standard quantum shield implementations. They're completely custom and, frankly, more sophisticated than anything I've seen in the field." Hayes turned to me, one eyebrow raised. "Care to explain?" I took a deep breath. This was either going to save my career or end it completely. "It's a cascading encryption system I've been developing in my spare time. When unauthorized access is attempted, instead of simply locking down, it creates additional security layers in real time, while simultaneously fragmenting and further encrypting the protected data." "You implemented experimental security protocols on classified systems without authorization?" Hayes's voice was dangerously quiet. "Yes," I admitted. "The standard company protocols have vulnerabilities I've identified, but haven't been able to get addressed through official channels. My system patches those vulnerabilities." The specialist was scrolling through the code, his expression shifting from suspicion to intrigue. "This is impressive. The algorithm adapts to attack patterns, essentially learning from breach attempts." Hayes studied me carefully. "So you violated protocol by bringing classified materials home, then further violated it by implementing unauthorized security measures." She paused. "Which, ironically, may have prevented a more serious breach when your family sold the laptop." "That's an accurate assessment," I acknowledged. She seemed to consider this for a long moment before turning back to the specialist. "Continue your analysis. I want to know exactly how these protocols performed during the breach attempt." As they worked, I sat in the corner of the room, mentally preparing for the worst. Even if my security measures had protected the data, I had still violated multiple company policies. My career at Quantum Shield was almost certainly over. The afternoon stretched into evening. Occasionally, I heard my family moving around downstairs, their voices muted but tense. No one came up to check on me or the ongoing security assessment. Their silence spoke volumes about where I stood with them now. Around 8 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Agent Hayes opened it to reveal a man I recognized immediately: Garrett. He'd flown in personally, which couldn't be a good sign. "Madison." He nodded curtly before turning to Hayes. "What's the status?" "Primary encryption protocols remained intact," she reported. "Secondary architectural data was briefly exposed but doesn't appear to have been extracted or copied. We've secured all components and run full diagnostics on the cousin systems. No evidence of intentional breach or data theft." Garrett's expression remained grim. "And the unauthorized security protocols?" So they'd already briefed him on that discovery. My heart sank further. Hayes gestured to the technical specialist, who pulled up a detailed analysis on his monitor. They performed exactly as Miss Taylor described. When the unauthorized access was attempted, the system initiated a cascading encryption sequence that effectively rendered the data inaccessible while simultaneously strengthening security around core components. Essentially, the specialist continued, looking almost impressed, "The harder someone tries to break in, the more secured the system becomes. It's adaptive in a way our standard protocols aren't." Garrett studied the screen, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to me. "You implemented this without authorization on company hardware containing classified information?" "Yes." "Why didn't you submit this through proper channels?" "I did," I said quietly. 3 times over the past 18 months. It was deemed unnecessary and cost prohibitive each time." Garrett frowned. "I don't recall seeing these proposals. They never made it past mid-level review." He was silent for a long moment, then sighed heavily. "We need to discuss next steps, privately." Hayes nodded to her team, and they filed out of the room, leaving me alone with Garrett. "Madison," he began, "you understand the seriousness of the violations here. don't you? Completely. Taking classified materials off-site, implementing unauthorized security protocols, exposing sensitive information to unauthorized civilians. He ticked each point off on his fingers. Any one of these would be grounds for termination. I nodded, resigned to my fate. And yet, he continued, your unauthorized protocols appear to have prevented a significant breach. The technical assessment indicates your system performed remarkably well under actual threat conditions, better than our standard protocols likely would have. I looked up, surprised by this acknowledgement. I've spoken with the director. This situation has complicated implications. Garrett ran a hand through his hair, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. The violation of security protocols can't be overlooked. However, the effectiveness of your security measures can't be ignored either. What does that mean for me? It means we're at a crossroads. The company can't condone your actions, but we also can't deny the potential value of your security innovations. He fixed me with a serious look. The director is considering an alternative to termination. Hope flickered faintly. What alternative? A lateral move to our R&D division, focusing specifically on adaptive security protocols. Your clearance would remain restricted until you've completed additional security training and a probationary period. You'd be closely supervised, with no access to classified field implementations initially. It wasn't ideal, but it was far better than termination and potential criminal charges. I would accept those terms, I said quickly. Don't answer yet, Garrett warned. There's more. The position would require relocation to our facility in Arlington. You'd be starting essentially from scratch, rebuilding your reputation within the company. Arlington was halfway across the country, far from my current life, but also far from my family. After the events of the past 2 days, that didn't seem like such a negative. When would you need my decision? By Monday. The security team will complete their assessment tomorrow. Then you'll need to come in for a formal debriefing. He stood to leave, then hesitated. For what it's worth, Madison, I reviewed your security protocols myself. They're impressive. In a different context, they might have earned you a promotion rather than probation. After Garrett left, I sat alone in the guest room, contemplating my options. The prospect of starting over was daunting, but also strangely liberating. A clean slate, focused on the security innovations I'd been passionate about developing, away from the family dynamics that had constrained me for so long. My contemplation was interrupted by another knock at the door. I opened it to find my parents and Allison standing in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. The agent said they're finishing up for the night. My mother said tentatively, they'll be back tomorrow to continue. Yes, I know. An awkward silence stretched between us. Your boss seemed intense, my father finally offered. He had good reason to be. My father shifted uncomfortably. Madison, we've been talking, and, well, we feel terrible about what happened. Do you? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Of course we do, my mother insisted. We never meant to cause such problems. Allison nodded. We had no idea the laptop was so important. I studied their faces, searching for genuine understanding rather than simply regret at the consequences. I wasn't convinced I saw it. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But I'm not sure you understand why I'm so upset. Because we got you in trouble at work, my father supplied. No, I shook my head. Because you took something that belonged to me without asking, then sold it as if you had the right to make that decision. And when confronted with that violation of trust, your first instinct wasn't to apologize, but to deflect responsibility and question my competence. They exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with this direct address of their behavior. We said we're sorry, Allison said defensively. What more do you want? Understanding, I replied simply. Recognition that regardless of what the laptop contained, your actions showed a fundamental lack of respect for me and my belongings. Another uncomfortable silence fell. I've been offered a position at our Arlington facility, I finally said. I'm considering taking it. Arlington? In Virginia? My mother looked shocked. But that's so far away. That's one of its appeals at the moment, I admitted honestly. The hurt on their faces was visible, but I couldn't bring myself to soften the blow. Too many years of diminishment and dismissal had created a chasm between us that platitudes couldn't bridge. Madison, My father began hesitatingly. "We don't want you to leave like this. We're still family." "Yes, we are," I agreed. "But being family doesn't automatically grant trust or respect. Those have to be earned and maintained. Right now, we have work to do in those areas." I stepped back into the room. "I need to prepare for tomorrow's assessment. We can talk more later." As I closed the door, I saw the stunned expressions on their faces. For perhaps the first time, they were seeing me not as their difficult daughter with the incomprehensible job, but as a professional adult with boundaries they had crossed. Whether that realization would lead to meaningful change remained to be seen. I returned to the desk, reviewing notes for tomorrow's technical assessment. The security team had left their equipment in place, monitoring systems throughout the night for any signs of compromise. Tomorrow would bring formal statements, detailed technical analysis, and decisions that would shape my professional future. As for my personal future, particularly regarding my family, that remained uncertain. The crisis had exposed fractures in our relationship that had existed for years beneath the surface. Addressing them would require effort from all sides, and I wasn't sure any of us were ready for that work yet. For now, I focused on what I could control, providing the most accurate and comprehensive information possible to the security team, preparing for the formal debriefing, and considering the opportunity in Arlington with clear eyes. One crisis at a time was quite enough. Morning came too quickly. I'd slept fitfully, waking every few hours to check the security monitoring equipment. By 7, I was already reviewing protocols and preparing for the day's assessment when Agent Hayes arrived with her team and 2 new faces, senior security analysts from headquarters. "Miss Taylor," Hayes greeted me formally, "we need to conduct a comprehensive review of the incident and your security measures. The team will begin with the technical assessment, then we'll need your detailed statement." I nodded, stepping aside to give them access to the equipment. For the next several hours, I observed as they conducted meticulous analysis of every component, security log, and data pathway. Occasionally, one of the analysts would ask me detailed questions about my custom protocols, which I answered as clearly and comprehensively as possible. Around noon, Hayes called for a break. As the team stepped out to get lunch, she remained behind with one of the senior analysts, a stern-looking man introduced simply as Jenkins. "Miss Taylor." Jenkins began without preamble. "Our preliminary findings are concerning. While your custom security protocols performed admirably during the breach attempt, the fact remains that you implemented them without authorization on a system containing classified information." "I understand. Furthermore," he continued, "our deeper analysis has identified potential vulnerabilities in the secondary systems that were briefly exposed. While we have no evidence of data extraction, we cannot definitively rule out the possibility that architectural information was compromised." My heart sank. What does that mean for the project? Best case scenario, a complete rebuild of the secondary authentication architecture, delaying implementation by approximately 3 months. Worst case, he hesitated. A full protocol redesign if we determine the exposure creates unacceptable security risks. The implications were staggering. Months of work and millions in development costs potentially wasted because of my decision to bring the laptop home. "I've spoken with your supervisor," Jenkins continued. "The offer to transfer to Arlington remains open, but with additional restrictions. Given these findings, your security clearance would be reduced to level 1 for a minimum of 12 months. With quarterly reviews before any potential restoration. Level 1 clearance would severely limit my access and responsibilities, essentially demoting me to an entry-level position despite my years of experience and expertise. But it was still better than termination and potential legal consequences." "I understand," I said again, struggling to maintain my professional composure despite the crushing weight of these revelations. Just as Jenkins was about to continue, we heard raised voices from downstairs. Hayes stepped out momentarily, then returned with a tight expression. "Your family is insisting on speaking with us," she informed me. "They're rather persistent." Before I could respond, the door burst open, and my parents and Allison pushed their way in, followed by a flustered security agent attempting to stop them. "Excuse me," my father addressed Jenkins directly, ignoring Hayes and me completely. "We need to discuss this situation. You've taken over our home for nearly 2 days now, and we deserve some answers. Jenkins looked taken aback by the interruption. Sir, this is an active security assessment. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to. We've been more than cooperative, my mother interjected. But this has gone far enough. Madison has clearly made some serious mistakes, but she shouldn't be the only one taking responsibility here. I stared at them in confusion. Was my mother actually defending me? We're the ones who sold the laptop, my father continued. If anyone should be facing consequences for that specific action, it's us, not Madison. Dad, I started, but he held up a hand to silence me. Let me finish, Madison. We've had a long talk as a family, and while we still believe you should have been clearer about the importance of your work, we acknowledge that selling your property without permission was wrong, regardless of what it contained. That's appreciated, I said cautiously, but it doesn't change the fact that I violated company security protocols by bringing the laptop home in the first place. No, Allison spoke up, but it does change the narrative that you're somehow unfit or incompetent, which is what your boss seemed to be implying yesterday. Jenkins cleared his throat. I'm afraid this is a private matter between Miss Taylor and Quantum Shield. While we understand your concern as family members, do you? My mother interrupted. Because from where we're standing, it seems like Madison is being scapegoated for a security system that was vulnerable to begin with. I blinked in surprise. Mom, that's not, isn't it? She turned to me. You said yourself that you submitted your improved security protocols 3 times, and they were rejected. If they had implemented your suggestions when you first made them, wouldn't the system have been more secure even if the laptop was compromised? Jenkins and Hayes exchanged uncomfortable glances. That's technically accurate, I admitted, but irrelevant to my violation of protocol. It's entirely relevant, my father insisted. If the company ignored security improvements that could have prevented this situation, they share responsibility for the outcome. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After years of dismissing my work, my family was suddenly defending not just me, but my technical expertise as well. Jenkins looked increasingly uncomfortable. While I appreciate your perspective, Mr. Taylor, the fact remains that your daughter removed classified materials from a secure facility and implemented unauthorized modifications to protected systems. Modifications, Allison pointed out, that your own team just spent hours analyzing because they're apparently better than what you're currently using. The tension in the room was palpable. Hayes looked like she wanted to be anywhere else, while Jenkins seemed caught between professional protocol and the unexpected logic of my family's arguments. Seeing an opportunity I hadn't anticipated, I stepped forward. If I may, I addressed Jenkins directly. I'd like to demonstrate exactly what my security protocols accomplished during the breach attempt. He hesitated, then nodded cautiously. Moving to the computer terminal, I pulled up the security logs and began walking through the cascade response sequence step by step. As I explained each layer of protection and how it adapted to the breach attempts, I could see the technical interest overcoming Jenkins' professional reservations. The standard company protocol would have simply locked down at this point, I explained, pointing to a specific sequence in the logs. But as you can see, my system identified the specific nature of the attack and created a targeted counter-response, essentially building a custom defense against the particular intrusion attempt. I continued the technical breakdown, feeling more confident with each explanation. This was my element, the work I'd devoted my career to perfecting. For once, I didn't dumb it down or summarize. I let my expertise flow naturally, demonstrating not just what my security system did, but why each component was designed the way it was. To my surprise, my family remained silent throughout my explanation, watching with expressions ranging from confusion to something that looked almost like pride. When I finished, Jenkins was studying the screen intently. This adaptive response capability is impressive, he admitted reluctantly. Our current systems don't have this level of situational awareness. No, I agreed. They don't, which is why I've been trying to get these protocols approved for implementation. The cybersecurity landscape is evolving too rapidly for static defense measures to remain effective. Hayes had moved closer during my explanation, her professional interest evident. These logs show the system actually strengthened itself after detecting the initial breach attempt. That's not standard procedure. It's not, I confirmed. The standard procedure assumes breach prevention fails only due to superior attack methodology. My system assumes breach attempts themselves contain valuable information that can be used to improve defenses in real time. Jenkins and Hayes exchanged looks again, but this time the dynamic had shifted. What had begun as a disciplinary assessment had transformed into a technical evaluation of an innovative security approach. "Miss Taylor," Jenkins said after a long pause, "while this doesn't excuse your violation of security protocols, it does provide important context for our final assessment." He closed his notebook. "I'll need to discuss this with the director before making any final recommendations." As they prepared to continue their technical assessment, my family was finally ushered out of the room. But before leaving, my father caught my eye and gave me a small nod, a gesture of respect I couldn't remember receiving from him before. Once alone with the security team again, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Professional anxiety still dominated, but underneath was a flicker of something unexpected, the feeling of being truly seen and defended by my family, perhaps for the first time in my adult life. Hours later, as the security team packed up their equipment and prepared to leave, Hayes approached me with an update. "Jenkins has spoken with the director," she informed me. "Based on the comprehensive assessment and the demonstrated effectiveness of your security protocols, they're reconsidering the terms of your transfer to Arlington." "Reconsidering how?" I asked cautiously. "Instead of a lateral move with reduced clearance, they're discussing the possibility of heading up a new adaptive security division, essentially building a team to develop and implement the protocols you've created." I stared at her in disbelief. "That's not what I expected." Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "Neither did Jenkins. But the data speaks for itself, and the incident provided a real-world test case that would have been impossible to replicate in controlled conditions. So my career isn't over? Far from it. You'll still face consequences for the protocol violations, probation, additional security training, regular reviews. But your expertise has proven too valuable to waste, especially given the increasing sophistication of threats we're facing." As Hayes left to join her team, I sat down heavily in the desk chair, trying to process this unexpected turn of events. What had begun as a catastrophic security breach had somehow transformed into a potential career advancement, all because my family had inadvertently created conditions for my security innovations to prove their worth under actual threat conditions. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same family dynamics that had driven me to overwork and bring the laptop home had ultimately led to the validation of my technical approach. It was a mess of contradictions and unintended consequences that I was still struggling to fully comprehend. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. My parents and Allison stood in the doorway, looking both exhausted and hesitant. "They're finally leaving," my father said. "Is it over?" "Not entirely," I replied. "I still have a formal debriefing at headquarters tomorrow. But the worst appears to have been avoided." My mother stepped forward cautiously. "We heard them mentioning something about a new division in Arlington, with you in charge." "It's being discussed," I confirmed. "Nothing's finalized yet." "That sounds like a promotion, not a punishment," Allison observed. "It's complicated," I said with a tired smile, "and still contingent on a lot of factors." An awkward silence fell between us. Years of misunderstanding and dismissal, creating a chasm that even this shared crisis couldn't immediately bridge. "Madison," my father finally said, "we owe you an apology, a real one, not just regret about consequences. We didn't respect your boundaries," my mother continued, "or your expertise. We've spent so many years thinking of you as our tech-obsessed daughter that we failed to recognize the accomplished professional you've become." "And I've been competitive and dismissive," Allison admitted reluctantly. "It was easier to diminish your work than to acknowledge that your path might be just as valid as mine, just different." Their words were exactly what I'd always wanted to hear. Yet I found myself struggling to fully accept them. Too many years of feeling misunderstood and undervalued had built walls that wouldn't come down in a single moment of crisis-induced clarity. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But trust and respect take time to rebuild. This is a start, but we have a lot of work ahead of us." They nodded, seeming to understand that no single conversation could repair years of damaged relationship. "Whatever you decide about Arlington," my father said, We want you to know we're proud of you. We may not understand everything you do, but watching you explain those security systems today, it was impressive, Madison. Really impressive. Thank you, I said, meaning it despite my lingering reservations. That means a lot. As they left me alone to prepare for tomorrow's debriefing, I felt something shift within me, a subtle but significant recalibration of my relationship with both my family and my career. The crisis had forced everything into sharp relief, revealing both weaknesses and unexpected strengths in both domains. Whatever came next, whether heading a new division in Arlington or rebuilding my professional reputation elsewhere, I would face it with a clearer understanding of my own value, both professionally and personally. And perhaps, just perhaps, with a family beginning to recognize that value as well. 6 months can change everything, or at least that's what I've learned. I'm writing this from my new office in Arlington, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the Potomac River. The nameplate on my door reads Madison Taylor, Director, Adaptive Security Division. Some days, I still can't believe how drastically my professional trajectory shifted after what my team now jokingly calls the Thanksgiving incident. The formal debriefing the day after the security assessment was grueling. 6 hours of detailed questioning, technical analysis, and procedural review. I didn't try to justify my violations of protocol, instead acknowledging my errors while thoroughly explaining my security innovations. The director, initially stern and skeptical, became increasingly engaged as the technical discussion progressed. Your methods were unorthodox and unauthorized, he concluded after reviewing all the evidence, but the results speak for themselves. The adaptive response capabilities you've developed represent a significant advancement over our current systems. The offer came at the end of that marathon session. Leadership of a new division focused specifically on developing and implementing adaptive security protocols, starting with the military communication encryption project that had been compromised. The position came with increased responsibilities, a substantial budget for building a team, and a clear mandate to transform Quantum Shield's approach to cybersecurity. It also came with conditions: a 6-month probationary period, weekly security compliance reviews, and mandatory leadership training. Fair terms, given the circumstances. I accepted immediately. The transition wasn't seamless. Relocating across the country, building a team from scratch, and establishing a new division within Quantum Shield's existing structure presented significant challenges. The first few weeks were a blur of HR meetings, budget negotiations, and technical planning sessions. Some colleagues were skeptical of my rapid advancement, following what should have been a career-ending security breach, while others were simply curious about the technology that had warranted such an unusual response. Garrett remained professionally distant at first, clearly still processing how his direct report had simultaneously violated security protocols and developed innovations significant enough to warrant a new division. Our relationship gradually evolved into a more collaborative partnership as the practical benefits of my security approach became increasingly apparent during implementation. The custom encryption system I'd developed was refined, documented, and expanded under proper authorization, ultimately becoming the cornerstone of Quantum Shield's next-generation security platform. Within 4 months, we had successfully rebuilt the compromised secondary systems with enhanced protections and integrated the adaptive response capabilities throughout the architecture. The military communication project was not only back on track but significantly improved. My personal transformation paralleled the professional one. The crisis had forced me to confront not just my relationship with my family, but my own tendency to seek validation through achievement rather than healthy boundaries. The company-mandated leadership training, initially viewed as a punishment, became unexpectedly valuable in addressing these patterns. As for my family, that's been a more complex evolution. After returning from the debriefing, I spent 2 more days at my parents' house. The atmosphere was different, tentative, but with a new undercurrent of respect that hadn't been there before. My father asked genuine questions about my work for the first time, trying to understand even when the technical details exceeded his grasp. My mother listened more than she spoke, a noticeable shift from her usual approach. Allison remained somewhat distant, but without the competitive edge that had defined our relationship for years. When I left, explaining my decision to accept the Arlington position, There were no guilt trips or dismissive comments. Instead, my father simply said, "We'll miss you, but this sounds like an incredible opportunity." It wasn't effusive, but its sincerity meant more than any dramatic declaration could have. Since then, we've maintained regular contact weekly video calls and a family text thread that occasionally includes actual substantive conversation rather than just surface pleasantries. When they ask about my work now, they listen to my answers without immediately changing the subject. Small steps, but meaningful ones. 3 months after moving to Arlington, I flew back for a weekend visit. The dynamic was still evolving, old patterns occasionally resurfacing before being consciously adjusted. My mother still made comments about my workload and lack of work-life balance, but they came from a place of concern rather than judgment. My father proudly showed colleagues my business card when they visited the insurance office, despite not fully understanding what adaptive security division actually meant. Perhaps most surprisingly, Allison and I had a breakthrough during that visit. After her wedding planning meeting, we ended up alone at a local coffee shop, awkwardly attempting small talk until she suddenly asked, "Are you happy? With the new position and everything?" The directness of the question caught me off guard. "Yes," I answered honestly. "It's challenging and occasionally overwhelming, but it's exactly the work I want to be doing." She nodded, stirring her latte absently. "I always thought you were running away from the family by choosing such a different path. It never occurred to me that you were running towards something you genuinely love." That simple acknowledgement opened a door to a more authentic relationship between us. We're not best friends. Too many years of competition and misunderstanding create patterns that take time to fully reset, but we're developing something that feels like mutual respect. My cousin Derek and I have reached a tentative truce as well. His external drive was eventually returned after thorough security screening, and Quantum Shield compensated him for the $500 he'd paid my parents for the laptop. He still thinks I overreacted, but he's also become notably more cautious about connecting unknown hardware to his networks, a lesson I consider well worth the temporary strain in our relationship. Looking back at the Thanksgiving crisis now, I can see how it functioned as a pressure test for both my technical innovations and my personal relationships. Both revealed weaknesses under stress, but also unexpected resilience and capacity for growth. My unauthorized security protocols, despite the circumstances of their implementation, proved their value in a real-world crisis. And my family, despite years of misunderstanding and dismissal, ultimately rallied to defend me when it mattered most. The experience taught me that validation doesn't come from external sources, whether family approval or professional recognition, but from confidence in my own expertise and boundaries. It showed me that even long-established relationship patterns can change when confronted with new perspectives. And it reminded me that sometimes our greatest innovations emerge from crisis situations where conventional approaches fail. 6 months after that disastrous Thanksgiving, I'm leading a team of 12 brilliant security specialists, implementing systems that will protect vital communications infrastructure for years to come. I'm navigating a new city, new responsibilities, and new relationships with colleagues who respect my technical expertise without qualification. And I'm building a healthier connection with my family, one based on mutual respect rather than conformity to expectations. The laptop incident could have ended my career and permanently damaged my family relationships. Instead, through a complex convergence of technical validation, personal advocacy, and reluctant admissions of mutual responsibility, it became a catalyst for transformation across multiple domains of my life. So if you're watching this and wondering if your family will ever understand your choices or value your unique skills, I don't have easy answers. The path to mutual respect is rarely straightforward. But I can tell you that sometimes, the very crisis that threatens to destroy everything can ultimately create space for something better to emerge. Has your family ever misunderstood something important to you? How did you handle it? Drop your stories in the comments below. I'm curious to hear how others navigate these complex dynamics. And if you found this story helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content about cybersecurity, family dynamics, and navigating professional crises. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the biggest challenges lead to the most unexpected opportunities for growth.